Yat bene. Good morning, my relatives. This is Mark Charles. It is Tuesday, February 6th. I'm sitting here with my second cup of coffee, and I just wanted to say Yat talk about a few things, and have a bit of a discussion this morning. Before I begin, I want to do like I always do and just acknowledge I'm speaking to you from Piscataway lands. This is the Piscataway who are living here and hunting here, farming here and fishing here, raising their families here and burying their dead here long before Columbus got lost at sea. And they're still here. I want to honor the Piscataway as the hosts of the land where I'm living. It's now known as Washington, D.C. I want to thank the Piscataway for their stewardship of these lands. And I just want to state how humbled I am to be living on these lands today. So there's a few things. I mean, there's a lot I want to discuss this morning. There's a lot going on, and I'm going to be talking a little bit later about the airstrikes we did in Iraq and Syria over the weekend in response to a drone attack on U.S. service members about a week and a half ago. But before I do, I want to just talk a little bit about mindfulness. I've been reading a book lately, and let me share that with you. I'm reading several books right now, and I'm going to try and talk a bit more about some of the books that I read. And when I say read, I'm listening to books. I'm using Audible and using other ways to get audiobooks, and I'm actually going through several books right now. But the book one of the books that I'm currently reading, it's a very well-known book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. It's by Bessel Kolk, and it is a fascinating book on trauma and some of the ways to deal with trauma and the way it affects you. And as someone who has looked at trauma, studied trauma, experienced trauma, I found this book really fascinating. And a central point of the book is not mindfulness, but it brought up several points in me about the necessity to be mindful. And I think I've just been noticing that, like, even so much of the world that's going on around us is taking us out of being in the present and more of putting us into a bubble, whether it's our noise canceling headphones that we wear. Are there now? Apple just came out with some virtual reality goggles that you can wear that pretty much it virtualizes everything in your surroundings and allows you to virtually interact with them. Right, whether it's the phones that we look at as we're walking down the streets, or people are driving their cars staring at their phones. Right, we do so much. We have so much distraction in our lives that we're not very present, and we're not very aware of kind of what's going on in our surroundings. And so I've been taking note of that recently and decided that I want to actually be more mindful and be more present kind of in my skin when I'm out in public, when I'm out in spaces where people may want to interact, or where I'm just going to be seeing and meeting people. Not that it's not bad to put on your your noise canceling headphones at times, but just what does it mean to be mindful and try to be present in a world that is increasingly less present? Um, and one of the ways I try and do that, and you see this if you follow me on Instagram or on Facebook, is by the photos that I take. And I just want to share with you a few photos, because last week I took a trip and I was up in Utah, driving up to Preston, Idaho, to go to the 161st anniversary commemoration of the Bear River Massacre. And then I took some time to go to Los Angeles to see my niece play in one of her high school basketball games. And I do this frequently when I drive and when I travel, is I'll just pull off the road if I see something that catches my eye and take a photo of it. Or if I'm walking through town or coming out someplace, I'll stop and just take a look at the surroundings and take a picture of what's in front of me, just to enjoy the moment. And so I just want to share this photo with you. This is a photo I took when I was driving up to Preston, Idaho from Salt Lake City. And right, it's a beautiful photo of the mountains in Utah, with a very snowy, beautiful field that you can see. And one of the reasons I like to stop and take these photos is I have a large, kind of a wide monitor that I work on. And I have my photos kind of working as a display, as a background image, and it rotates through photos. And I put some of these landscape type photos that I take, and I put them on my screen, and it almost makes it like a windows in front of me that I can see out and to look at the beauty of nature. And then I showed this picture last week, but I was in LA. I was walking out of a restaurant, and there was some palm trees right in front, and the sun was beginning to set behind it, and the clouds were turning a beautiful color. And I just stopped to take a picture and just soaked in the beauty of that moment. And again, this is part of the thing I think I want to work harder at, is just what can I do to be more mindful, to be more present in my body when I'm out, when I'm around. And I want to start sharing some of those with you more intentionally, because as I've just been realizing, there is so much that we put in front of us that distracts us from being present in the moment, that I just want to remind you the beauty and some of the beauty we miss, and that I miss when I'm not in the moment of where I'm at or where I'm going or what I'm doing. So anyway, I thought I would share some of those things with you. Let me look at my chat to see who's on here. Sharonda, yeah, hey, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining this morning. Other people who are out there, thanks for being online with me this morning. I hope you're having a good morning. I hope your cup of coffee is as good as mine is. Actually, my wife and I walked this weekend to a nearby farmer's market, and there was a local coffee vendor there and had some coffee that was for sale. And I bought this. So the coffee I'm drinking this morning is from a local market I bought here in town, here in DC, and I'm enjoying drinking it this morning. So yeah, it's adding to my morning pleasure today. But I wanted to talk about last night as I was getting ready to go to bed. I kind of usually I'll listen to some news headlines or just kind of catch up a little bit about the day's events, about maybe half hour, an hour before I go to bed. And oh, Michelle, thank you. Yeah, hey, greetings to you in Oklahoma. Thank you for commenting on the pictures. They are beautiful. I appreciate that. Thank you. But so last night I was listening to some news, and I knew that we had bombed Iraq. And while I knew we had bombed Iran militants in response to the drone attack that happened a few months ago, but I learned some more details about that last night, and I just wanted to talk about it with you today. So first, just to catch you up, if you haven't been following this news, or just so we're all on the same page, about a week and a half ago, on Sunday, January 28th, there was a drone attack. I think it was in Jordan, and it was from what they concluded was from Iran-backed militants, and it killed 3 U.S. service members in this drone attack. And that's right. That's a tragedy, right? The U.S. service members enlist in our military to protect our nation. They are out fighting wars on our behalf and doing things to keep us safe as a nation. And I lament the loss of life. But I also do not like the way our nation responds when our nation experiences a loss of life. And that's what I want to talk about today. If you read the article I just shared from Reuters, it quotes from a statement that President Biden made either the day of or the day after the attack. And in this statement, he said, "Have no doubt, we will hold all those accountable at a time and in a manner of our choosing." And that is a quote from President Biden in response to the attack on U.S. military installation that killed 3 U.S. service members. So then this past weekend, on Friday, February 2nd, the U.S. attacked 7 military targets in Iraq and Syria. And they attacked targets that where they concluded Iran-backed militants were hiding or were at, and they attacked those installations. 7 of them, I think, 4 were in Syria and 3 were in Iraq, if I remember the article correctly. And then later that day, the White House issued a statement, and I'm going to give you a link to the statement right here. And actually, it was a press conference that was at the White House. And I'm just going to read a few of the comments here. One of the quotes from the statement was, or from the press conference, was, "The United States does not seek conflict with Iran or in the broader Middle East. But as President Biden has made clear, we will not hesitate to defend our people and hold responsible all those who harm Americans at a time and a place of our choosing. That began tonight, but it will not end tonight." They go on to state that our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing, Biden warned, adding, "Let all those who might seek to do us harm know this: if you harm an American, we will respond." He and other top U.S. military leaders had been saying for days that any American response wouldn't be just one hit, but a tiered response over time. I think that's from the AP article that I listed above. And in this statement, they also made it very clear, and I'm just going to show you. So this is a screenshot of the statement right now, and let me just show this to you. But maybe you can't even see it. Let me look. Okay. So this is the statement that's listed here. And in the statement they gave, Mr. Kirby, who was one of the people giving the press conference, said, "On Iraq, we did inform the Iraqi government prior to the strikes occurring." So we stated right after we did the strikes that we informed Iraq, the Iraqi government, who is one of our allies, right, one of our friends, that we were going to be bombing targets in their nation. But Iraq immediately, and I'm going to share this link with you, immediately they condemned our attack. And I'm going to share that article with you. This was from an article in NPR. And Iraq condemned our attack. And in their condemnation, I'm just going to read a few parts of this article to you. It says, "The Iraqi government spokesman condemned the strikes targeting the Popular Mobilization Forces as blatant aggression and a violation of Iraqi sovereignty." Went on to say, "This aggressive airstrike will push the security situation in Iraq and the region to the brink of the abyss," said Baisem Alawadi, the government spokesman. "We assert that the presence of the international coalition, which deviated from its assigned tasks and granted mandate, has become a reason for endangering the security and stability in Iraq. It also serves as a justification for entangling Iraq in regional and international conflicts," Alawadi said. U.S. claims that it had informed the U.S. Alawadi said U.S. claims that it had informed the Iraqi government of the strike beforehand were not true, calling it intentional deception. And then yesterday, on the 5th, the U.S. walked back its statement that it made at the White House immediately after the attack and said, "Oh, yes, we misspoke. We did not inform Iraq that we were going to be attacking them." Asked about the discrepancy on Monday, Kirby said that his comment was inaccurate. Quote, "I responded with information that had been provided at the time. It was not as specific as it could have been, and I regret any confusion caused," Kirby said. That said, we had made it no secret, both to Iraq officials and in public channels, that we would respond, and we did, in fact, officially notify Iraq as appropriate with standard procedure. This is where it becomes problematic, right? As I stated earlier, the U.S., I lament anytime one of our service members dies, right? They enlist to serve our country. They're put in places of harm and danger. And when lives are lost, that is very, very lamentable and regrettable. But the way we respond as a nation to the death of any of our service members, at least the death by a foreign government, is we suddenly basically lose all control. And we just claim the right to do whatever we want to do. Right? Again, in his statement right after that bombing, that drone attack, President Biden said that we will respond in a time and manner of our choosing. And in the response after the actual missile, our airstrikes just this past weekend, we said that those who we will not hesitate to defend our people and hold responsible all those who harm Americans at a time and a place of our choosing. Now, time, I understand that, but a place of our choosing. And what we did is we bombed our ally. Literally, we bombed Iraq without informing them, or even we're not even informing them, without getting their permission to bomb within their borders. You see, when U.S. service members' lives are taken when they're deployed, we respond with not only this blatant act of white supremacy, right? And this is white supremacy. This is the lie of white supremacy in action right here, literally claiming the right that when you hurt one of us, we have the right to respond not only any time we choose, but any place that we choose. And we don't even have to tell you that we're going to bomb inside your borders. Now, if you disagree with me, think how the United States would respond had any other nation violated our borders in that way. We would not say that would literally be known and called and treated as an act of war. When you bomb inside another nation without getting their permission to do it, that is an act of war. And we claim the right to do this to our friends and our allies, at least our allies who are not white, anytime a U.S. service member's life is taken on the battlefield or when they're deployed. And that is not right. That is not the way you behave responsibly in an international community. That is not the way you treat your friends. That is not the way you treat your allies. That is an inappropriate and irresponsible and childish act. And this is why I said this is the trauma of white America on display. Right? When you have a nation, and if you don't understand what I'm talking about when I talk about the trauma of white America, I invite you to read chapter 11 of my book, Unsettling Truths. It goes into what I hypothesize is a multi-generational communal manifestation at a complex level of a perpetration-induced traumatic stress, which is the trauma that I observe is afflicting white America. Much like historical trauma, which is a multi-generational communal manifestation at a complex level of a post-traumatic stress disorder, I'm observing and hypothesizing that white America suffers from that because of PITS, perpetration-induced traumatic stress, not because we're the victims, but because we're the perpetrators, because of what we've done, right? We have done incredible harm throughout the history and the founding and the building of this nation. And we've never dealt with it. We've never wrestled with who we are. The enslavement of African people, the genocide of Native peoples. One of our most beloved presidents was not only a blatant, unapologetic, self-proclaimed white supremacist, but Abraham Lincoln was also one of the most genocidal presidents towards Native peoples we've ever had as a nation. And he's our hero because we don't know how to talk about what he did and what we ask our military to do on our behalf. And so whenever we get attacked, we respond like a child. We have one of the most consistent, predictable responses, right? Anytime America gets attacked, any nation can easily conclude, can guess, can know ahead of time how we're going to respond. They may not know when and they may not know where, but they know we will do it regardless of where it is and regardless of international protocols. They know how immature and irresponsibly we will behave as a nation when we're provoked. It's predictable. Biden talks, if you want to see the similarities between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, look at them when they are feeling attacked, whether it's because their family's being attacked or their nation's being attacked. They sound almost exactly similar. And this is the problem. This is the problem. We've never dealt with what we've done as a nation. We've never dealt with our own acts of terrorism and dehumanizing, genocide and enslavement and the things that we've done to build this nation. We've never dealt with that. And so we are absolutely 100% predictable when those things happen to us globally. We are one of the most immature, irresponsible nations on the globe. And I lament that. I regret that. I apologize to the world for the actions of my nation. I apologize to Iraq for the actions of my nation. We did not respect your sovereignty, and that was wrong. We not only should have told you what we were going to do, we should have asked for your permission. You, Iraq, are a sovereign nation. And we should not have behaved and treated you the way that we did. And we're going to have 8 more years or 4 more years of this, right? Because it doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't matter if Joe Biden wins or Donald Trump wins. They both react the same when they get under pressure situation. And it's not just because of who they are. It's because this is what the majority of this nation wants. We are one of the most immature, irresponsible nations with complete disregard for the sovereignty of other states. And it's embarrassing. And we have to learn how to talk about who we are and what we've done. And we have to learn to accept and understand that we are not exceptional as a nation. We are not better than everybody. We don't have a special relationship with God than everybody else. We don't have permission from a divine source to enact the violent acts that we enact. We're just a bully. We're someone who believes that we are entitled to always get our way. And I lament that. You can't exist in the community when you feel that way. You can't have healthy relationships when you feel that way. So anyway, we need to do better, my relatives. We need to be better citizens of the global community. We need to learn how to deal with our own history and past so that we don't continue just making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again, which is what we're doing every time we get into this situation. We need to do better. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot of work ahead of us as a nation. We need to learn how to build this common memory, how to deal with our past, how to build a better both national and global community, because we are able to recognize and acknowledge who we are and what we've done. And right now, we're not able to do either. And that is seriously making both our national and global relationships incredibly dysfunctional. If you don't believe me, look at what we're doing in Gaza, right? Joe Biden is running out, courting the votes of Palestinian Americans while we are actively funding and supporting what Israel is doing to them. It's like, it's laughable or cryable, whatever, right? You got to respond somehow. You either have to laugh or cry at the absurdity of American politics. There's a bipartisan bill that's probably not going to make it through Congress, not because we're disagreeing about supporting Israel militarily. That's not what's causing the hangup of that bill. It's because Republicans are bowing to Donald Trump and don't want to give an immigration victory to a Democratic Senate or to a Democratic president. Again, it's the immaturity of our white landowning men and maybe that's good, right? Maybe that's good. Maybe because we need to absolutely think hard, long and hard about what kind of support we're going to give to Israel. Because what they are doing right now, just like what we did in Iraq was wrong, what Israel is doing in Gaza right now is wrong. It is wrong. They have displaced virtually the entire nation. They have killed tens of thousands of civilian people. I do not disagree that what happened to them when they were attacked was a tragedy, but their response is absolutely unjust and not appropriate or called for. And we support them 100% as a nation. And then we have the gall to campaign for the votes of Palestinian Americans. Even to try to play both sides of the coin on the international stage. We're the last nation, I should say, that has any integrity to have any sort of leadership role in the dialogue going on in the Middle East or the conflicts going on in the Middle East. We haven't even dealt with what we've done. How are we going to solve other people who are doing the same things? How are we going to solve their problems? Anyway, You can tell I'm getting a little emotional about this. But anyway, I hope we can find a way, my relatives, to commit to doing better. We need to do better. And until then, if no one else will do it, I will do it. I apologize to the nation of Iraq for the way that my country, the United States of America, ignored and disregarded your sovereignty. The exact same way they ignore and disregard the sovereignty of native nations here in North America for 500 years. I apologize for that. We should not have done that. And we need to do better. Anyway, my relatives, there's a few other things I want to talk about. As you know, this is February, and this is Black History Month. And as I said earlier, I'm trying to do some reading. And one of the books that I'm is on my list to start, I'm hopefully going to start it this week or early next week, is I'm going to read this book, The Rebellious Life of Mrs. Rosa Parks. A documentary was made out of this book, and I haven't read it yet, and so I'm going to be reading through it these next few weeks and having some discussions about it throughout my second cups of coffee through the month of February. So if you want to read along with me, you're welcome to do that. And I'm going to be looking through and reading this book over the next few weeks as we go through the month of February. I'm also want to let you know another book that I'm gonna be talking about. Actually, this Friday on my second cup of coffee, I'm having an interview with Kathy Kong and Matt Michelatos, who are both friends of mine, and they wrote a book called Loving Disagreement. And let me show you a picture of that book a minute. It's actually, I uploaded a graphic of it. So they're the authors of this book. And the book asks, what does it look like to love someone you disagree with? And as our world in the US has gotten more divisive, our political world, right? There's a lot of ways where you have to sit through family dinners and things and talk with people and maintain a relation with people who you vehemently, adamantly disagree with politically or religiously or other issues. And so they talk about what does it look like to have loving disagreement. And they're both some great people. I'm excited to have a conversation with them. And so we're going to be discussing their book this coming Friday, right here on my second cup of coffee. And then immediately afterwards, we're going to jump onto my Patreon site where we'll do a Zoom call and I'll have a more in-depth Q&A with them. And so if you want to join that Q&A, you can subscribe to my Patreon. And that subscription tier is $10 a month, and you can join us for a Q&A right there, right here on Patreon. But the interview will be here on my second cup of coffee, and we'll be having that discussion here. Also on my Patreon this month, in the another tier there called Join the Conversation, I'm uploading two presentations that are parts 1 and part 2. I uploaded one yesterday. The other one I'll upload on February 20th. It's tips and lessons I've learned about writing, publishing, and promoting a book. And I've been asked several times about what the experience was of writing a book and things I've learned about publishing and promoting a book. And so I decided to put it together into a two-part presentation, and that will be going up on my Patreon. Part 1 went up yesterday, and part 2 is going up on February 20th. And that's on my Join the Conversation tier of my Patreon. And so you're welcome to join that discussion there too. If you would like to subscribe to my Patreon, I'm going to put the link here. I'm doing a lot of work this month to really continue to promote and grow my Patreon. It's such a good forum to have more in-depth dialogue, as well as for people who want to support the work that I'm doing. I don't monetize my social media. I don't get paid for ads that show in my YouTube videos. I do that because I don't want to give advertisers any influence over the content or the message that I give. And so I look for other ways that people can support me. And one of the ways, if you like the work I'm doing, you like the podcast I'm putting out and the stuff I'm working on, you can subscribe to my Patreon. And I really want to grow that and use that as a way to take the conversation deeper, as well as to financially support and grow the work that I'm trying to do. So anyway, those are a few things that I want to share with you. Obviously, you can still buy signed copies of the book that I co-authored with Soong-Chan Ra on Selling Truths, and those are always for sale on my website. But I really enjoy this chance to hang out and talk with everybody. I hope your cup of coffee is as good as mine is. I do read through your comments, so I welcome you to put comments or even questions in the comments, and I'll try to pick them up and answer them in future episodes of my second cup of coffee. But I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I thank you for your willingness to engage in these types of dialogues. So walk in beauty, my relatives, and may we all learn how to walk in beauty together. Shahat and Hakone.